Martha and Mary today present to us the constant dynamical pendulum in our lives. Work and prayer. Busy and quiet. Stressed, relaxed. Determined, accepted. There's a story about a Reader's Digest executive who was having a conversation with her marketing partner, marketing executive, and we just got into some personal matters as she started talking about the stress in her life. And even though she was very successful and the job was going very, very well, she was feeling very unfulfilled. She was feeling empty inside. And after thinking about this for a long time and talking about it with her partner there, her colleague said to her, you know, if you want to feel fulfilled, you're going to have to bring prayer into your life. In fact, you're going to have to pray 1 hour every morning. If you do that, it'll change dramatically the rest of your life, your experiences. Oh, I can't do that. I'd be right off my rocker if I did that. I couldn't possibly take that much time out of my day just to pray. Well, she left the luncheon thinking about that over and over again in her mind. And the next morning, that's exactly what she decided to do. She got up and prayed for an hour. She read the Bible, she thought about things in her life, she offered them up to God. She did all the kind of prayers that people usually do when they're quiet. And then she went off to work. And she did that then every day ever since. And she's felt very fulfilled and unstressed in her life. It isn't that the prayer has always been easy. Every time she goes to prayer, sometimes she feels wonderful peace and consolation from the Lord. And other times she's just very agitated. She can't get her mind off the busyness of her life, all the things that she has to do that day. And it's those times then that she remembers something her colleague told her. She says there'll be times when your mind will just not go into the Lord's sanctuary, and you'll spend an hour in God's waiting room. Everybody knows what it's like to be in a waiting room. The doctor's appointment's at 10 o'clock. You might get in at 10:45. And that's sometimes how prayer might feel to us. I sometimes ask couples to reflect in their own lives on an experience where they had a conversation where they really shared themselves, they shared their thoughts and their hopes and dreams, and it just was one of those really, really intimate type of experiences between the two of them. And they look at their watch and they realize, where did the 3 hours go? They went by like that. That feeling of intimacy that took place between the two of them, I try to, hopefully every couple has at least one of those somewhere along the way before you get married. You start to realize that, whoa, you know, that's kind of what heaven is like. Heaven is kind of like that, where time won't matter because you're with the one you love. And so it is true with our moments with Jesus. When we spend time at his feet, talking to him, and visiting with him, and telling him about our day, and then listening to him. And that's what Mary got from Jesus today. She wanted to spend some time just at his feet, listening to him. And for her, time just disappeared. She totally forgot about the other responsibilities in her life, until Martha reminded her of it. Now, Martha's always got the bad end of the deal, but you can't have a potluck supper without a Martha. You can't have a family gathering without a Martha. You can't have a funeral dinner without a Martha. You can't have a wedding without a Martha. You got to have Marthas. They're very important. And Jesus wasn't saying you're not important. What he was saying was, Martha, you also need to take some time from your busy day to spend some time at my feet as well. Now, hospitality, which is what Martha was doing, was in response to the call in her own faith to be like Abraham and Sarah today in the first reading. Because it's entertaining angels you may find yourself doing without even knowing for sure you're doing it. Because you're simply hospitable. Abraham and Sarah put on a great big feast. Sarah did most of the work. Abraham visited with the visitors, notice. The guys always do that, they get away with that. But the gals, they did all the work. So Sarah did all this work, and she provided this nice meal for them, whatever, and they get rewarded by being promised a child. In response to the promise that God had made to Abraham a long time before, when he says, you're going to have his descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sands of the seashore. And Abraham probably started thinking, okay, how does this get started? I don't even have a child. And so hospitality becomes the key that bridges that gap, and he and Sarah have their first child. I've experienced a kind of wonderful hospitality and gentle kind of welcome here at Holy Trinity since I've been here. The welcome that I've received from you has been all sorts of ways in which, you have made me feel at home. And that will continue, I'm confident, and it needs to continue because I'm still not moved in completely psychologically because I don't know enough yet. Until I get to know you and the whole curtain opens up and I can see the entire stage, and I say, you truly are all mine. But here's the thing. Hospitality is so important that it has to be practiced even in difficult times. So, as an example, you dads, first time that daughter brings home that boyfriend and you just kind of say, okay, this is interesting. And you try to be as hospitable as you can. You find it a little difficult. Or when that guy who goes off to college brings home his roommate for the first time. And it's this strange dude, that he brings into the house. And you got to be hospitable. Or even more challenging, perhaps, when the parish or the school has a campaign and we have the campaign worker comes to your house to ask you for a donation or a pledge. Hospitality. Be nice to them. So hospitality is very important. You've got to be the Martha in your life as well, and Martha in a good way. Now, one of the reasons why Jesus said to Mary, she's chosen the better part, is because you've got to put it in context. Martha, Mary, and Lazarus were Jesus' best friends, pretty much. Their home was a place that he could go and kick off his shoes, as it were. He could become himself there. He could relax. It was a home away from home. It was Bethany. It was not very far from Jerusalem, just a short walk. Not like Nazareth, which was way up north, or Capernaum, which was way by the Lake of Galilee. This was very close to Jerusalem. So Jesus would stop at Bethany before he walked into Jerusalem. And this is exactly what he did on Holy Week. He stopped there first before he went into Jerusalem when he ended up dying for us. He knew that. Martha and Mary provided that place for him. And so at that moment, Jesus needed Mary very much, just to be at his feet and listen to him. Jesus wants us to listen to him. The Divine Mercy spirituality talks about us consoling the heart of Jesus. We always look to God to console us. How about us thinking about ourselves as consoling the heart of Jesus? He continues to suffer for all the sufferings in the world. All of the tragedies and violence that has gone on these past few months or weeks. He suffers for those people as well. He suffers for every unborn child taken before its time. He suffers for every family that breaks up. He suffers, he hurts. And when we pray and spend time with him, we can think of ourselves as consoling his heart as well. And the opposite happens too. God wants to console us, and that's what happens in prayer as well. He consoles us and strengthens us and listens to us. And so, Martha, interestingly, now Jesus points out something about Martha that's interesting. She was very, very busy, which isn't so bad. But what she was also doing was nursing resentments. She was resenting Mary. And so if that spirit starts to enter into our hearts over things, like for instance, I did this and I did that and I did this and this is what I get for it, or I get no appreciation, all those things can breed resentment in our heart and can make us bitter. We have to kind of watch that because that's what Jesus is pointing out here. I have found in my own life that hour's worth of prayer in the morning is absolutely essential. to the point that I say no to anything that could possibly get in its way. Even if it's praying somewhere else. Even if it's praying with a group of people, I will say no. I need that time by myself with the Lord. That's my place where I say my engine gets its gas. That's what I have to do. There's a wonderful story about a priest who took his day off, and this lady was trying to get a hold of him, and she was calling for him and leaving messages and had his email and everything else to try to get a hold of him, and he wouldn't respond to any of those calls. And she was very upset, and the next day when she saw him, she kind of berated him for not paying any attention to her, and where were you when I really needed you? And the priest listened to her, and then he kind of smiled, and she says, and besides, the devil never takes a day off. Why did you take one off? And the priest said, yeah, that's right, but if I didn't take a day off, I would be just like the devil. So that balance in our lives is very important. It's not just the prayer time for a day, it's also the leisure time in terms of rest from our activities. And that's why from day one in our Judeo-Christian religion, we've had the Sabbath. That's why God says to you, rest. Take care of your family. Have family time. The hay can wait. Things can wait. You'll be a nervous wreck, but later on in life, those kids will remember that you took the day to pray, to be with them. And so that Sabbath is very important. It's a day of rest, a day of family, and a day of prayer. And we always mark it by coming to church on Sunday. So don't turn into the guy who never does take the day off by becoming such a workaholic you forget where God is at in your life. Balance. Prayer. Busyness. A holy hour weekly. Our work.